already a number of people, 14 people. I thought we'd just wait 1 or 2 minutes more to allow people to come into the room, and then we'll make a start. So I'll maybe 2 or 3 more minutes and then we'll get going. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I think this would be a good time to start. My name is Marissa Rolnick, and I'm from the Mamelodi campus. I'm the research fellow. I'm also assisting with research, hence my hosting of the seminars. I'd like to thank Mabatu Mabena, who has facilitated this whole event. And I would also like, first I'm going to ask, I think I'll start by introducing our speaker to you, and then I will ask Dr. Kwambakana to welcome her to Mamelodi. Thereafter, we'll ask Professor Pillay to give us her talk. She has indicated to me that she has slides, but she would prefer to speak without them, and she's happy to send them at the end. And I said everybody is welcome to talk the best way they can, and I'm sure she's got some very interesting stories to tell us about the project that she's been working on. So let me first say that Professor Pillay is a professor in the English School of English in the School of Education. She's graduated 27 honor students, 18 master students, and 7 PhD students. And she serves on the editorial boards of 2 journals. She's been conferred with the UKZN Distinguished Teachers Award. She has a US Embassy grant, and she's a principal investigator for the Expanding Literacy Project, run in collaboration with the Teachers College at Columbia University in New York, USA. I'll leave the substance of the talk to her. I think academic literacy is absolutely everybody's concern, and that's why we've probably got people from quite a range of disciplines here. And at this stage, I'll hand over to Dr. Kwambakana, who's the academic head of programs on the Mamelodi campus, just to welcome you.
Thank you, Prof. Rolnick. Prof. Pillay, it's a pleasure for us to have you on this particular day to address us. As you know, I'm sure Marissa, Professor Rolnick did give you some briefing. We are going through curriculum transformation and curriculum review, and it's just a perfect time so that LSD is one of our modules. It will be very good while we're looking at reshaping our offering extended curriculum program to see what your project has to offer, what your experiences can add to all the review that we are going through, and maybe we can learn learn many things too. We can translate into other disciplines other than academic literacy. So Prof. Pillay, you are very welcome to Mamelodi. Although it's online, we will wish to have you one day in our midst. So welcome, and we're ready to hear what you have to offer to share with us this morning. Please, the mic is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mkwambakana. I'm going to hand over now to Professor Pillay, and I've talked to her a little bit, and we thought she would speak till about 12:40, and then since she's speaking off the cuff, I'm sure she's going to generate a lot of questions, and that this hopefully will turn into a conversation. I do need to mention that I have to leave at about 10 to 1 as I'm attending a funeral. And so I will hand over to Dr. Nkwambakana to chair the questions at about that time.
Thank you.
Which she's kindly agreed to do. So please, we're looking forward to hearing what you've got to say. Please go ahead.
Much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And good day, everyone. And thank you for attending. And thank you also for the very kind invitation to share some of the insights and the lessons learned from our project, our academic literacy project, which is very recently concluded, but I'll give you a lot more information about it. A special thank you to the Office of the Head of Academic Programs who sent me the invitation. And thank you to all the persons involved in getting this started. I decided today not to share slides because I thought I needed to, because it was insights and it was lessons learned. I thought I'd prefer to chat with you about it, and then leave space for conversation, for questions, for things that are not clear to you based on what I say. So this academic literacy project specifically, ran over just over a year. It was a funded project, and it was done in collaboration with Teachers College Columbia in New York. So we needed to look at the problem first. So we worked with this project with first-year students, and we know, and that internationally and nationally, our first years have the highest dropout rate. And so we've got a very vulnerable population with the first years because, the business of success and graduation is uppermost in their minds, and yet they have the largest dropout rate. In terms of my context, and you can relate it now to yours. So this project was located within our School of Education at UKZN. In the school at UKZN School of Education, more than 54% of our first years are from quintiles 1, 2, and 3 schools, which means that, and that's something we do very purposefully, that we choose students at least half, but it's usually a little more than half, who come from quintiles 1, 2, and 3. The next issue is that most students are not English speakers at all, and their home languages are not English. Very large population speak isiZulu, but there are other languages as well. And even the students have studied English as a second language at school, not a first language. However, the medium of instruction at UKZN is English, despite our attempts to try to move towards a bilingual language policy. We are very much an English medium of instruction. So in terms of the status quo at the School of Education, we used to have academic literacy modules. We used to teach it to first years, and then we also taught it to honors students. And so those were core compulsory modules. But we also went through this whole process of reconfiguration of our degree offerings at undergrad and at honors level. And for various reasons, it was decided to remove the academic literacy modules from both programs. And the reasoning behind it was that academic literacy needed to be incorporated into every discipline. It needed to be underpinned by the disciplinary knowledge, by the disciplinary jargon, by the disciplinary requirements. And so we removed all academic literacy modules. And there was such a backlash. We're now in our 4th year of the new curriculum. There was such a backlash from staff at exam boards, etc., at both honors and at undergrad level, where staff were just saying students cannot, they have no idea about academic literacy, they don't know how to write, they don't know how to read, they can't interpret, they can't comprehend. And so it became a huge problem. Every semester we were getting exactly the same concerns from staff, which we hadn't had previously. And so we had students who had the normal, challenges transitioning to higher education that students have at any institution. The gaps in subject knowledge, the lapses in English language proficiency, limited academic literacy knowledge, and yet they came to university with their own socially and historically contextualized literacies. They arrived with capital. They arrived with their own linguistic capital. They arrived with social capital, but they arrived also with aspirational capital. They wanted to succeed. They wanted to do well, but were not. And we realized that academic literacy support was now absolutely critical for students to perform well, to succeed at university, and to graduate. And so we couldn't put back the modules that had been removed, but we had to think of other things. And so we applied for funding for this project. It would have been a project that we would have done anyway, in a different format, but we were very grateful to receive funding for a year-long project, which was then extended for a little longer. The project was in collaboration with Teachers College Columbia in New York. We do have quite a long history of collaboration with them, with various other projects, and so they were very keen to get on board with this one as well. So the aims of the project, we focused on the first-year students only. We wanted to see how it worked. In the School of Education, we had at the time 1,500 first-year students, and that was the group that we were focusing on. So the project aimed to expand access to these first-year students, to provide support for student success, but we wanted to do it by moving away from a deficit model. We were very, very keen on making this a program that students would want to join, would want to be part of, and I'll explain that project just now. So we needed to move away from this deficit model. We wanted to recognize, we wanted to value students' diversity, students' language practices, but help them overcome their academic barriers, their literacy barriers, their academic literacy barriers. We also wanted to help them learn how to develop their genre literacies in their disciplines. So, it's a School of Education, so it covers every possible discipline, that could be taught at a school. But we wanted to also be able to support students' meaning making. How do they make meaning of the knowledge that they were getting in their lectures and that they had to make sense of in their assignments? So while we very often position students as consumers of knowledge, we also were very, very concerned about also making them constructors of knowledge and producers of knowledge. So we worked through 5 phases. Our project was designed in 5 phases. And so the first phase, and I'm just going to quickly go through the phases, and then I'll tell you the lessons learned from each phase and the insights we gained. So the first phase was, doing a needs survey with first-year students. It was sent out on the learning management system. It was Likert scale type a survey, and we asked them various questions. And that was done at the end of their semester 1 of their first year. In phase 2, we spoke to staff who teach first-year students, asking them what they understood to be students' needs in academic literacy. So we got the 2 main stakeholders to tell us what they felt, what they wanted, and how they thought that, the students were doing. In phase 3, we created modules to train our senior students. And we could have chosen anyone, we realized now, but we chose for this project our doctoral students. And so we had to create, we call them modules, but they were just training workshops on issues of academic literacy, so that the doctoral students would work with the first years to in a peer dialogic model to help them with academic literacy. These modules were developed in conjunction with Columbia University, and we visited their writing center there. We don't have a writing center, but we visited theirs, and we watched their program in operation. We watched how their doctoral students work with their students. And then we developed modules based on, what we thought we would need. Phase 4 was actually recruiting and training the doctoral students to become what we called writing fellows by the end, or writing advisors. So phase 4 was very much a training process. And we ensured that we recruited doctoral students from various disciplines. We had one doctoral student from languages, but all the others were from various disciplines, and that was done purposefully as well. We also appointed an administrator who administered the project, but who would take appointments from first-year students to meet with a writing advisor. And then phase 5 was the actual project, where writing fellows provided individual peer mentorship, and that was how the project was designed. It was designed for individual peer mentorship, but very soon it became individual, pair, and group consultations to first-year students who requested assistance. So it wasn't where students had to attend, it wasn't a class, it was purely voluntary. It was where they requested to meet with a writing support, and to help them. All we said was to help you improve your academic writing. We did use Zoom because this was during the pandemic, and so this was not anticipated. The project was designed to be done in person, but we had to resort to Zoom. We had ongoing evaluation of these phases. We met monthly. It was a meeting workshop kind of situation with the entire project team of staff, the writing fellows. We had 6 writing fellows, and we had the administrator. We also had follow-up sessions, Zoom sessions, with our colleagues in Teachers College, Columbia. So I'm going to now talk about the lessons learned, the insights gained from the different phases. Some things we anticipated, but many things we didn't. So phases 1 and 2 were pure needs analyses, right? So we wanted to identify what were first-year students' academic literacy needs, and then with phase 2, what was staff understanding of students' academic literacy needs. So students filled in a survey, but staff wrote narratives. And staff were basically asked the question, what are your views about your first year students' academic reading, comprehension, and writing skills? And both groups, by and large, said, or noted students' struggles with academic writing. Both groups also noted students' struggles with academic reading and comprehension of texts. So that was, quite those kinds of views were aligned. But there were huge gaps in alignment with what students said and what staff said. So for instance, what we found really glaring with staff narratives was that staff very often foregrounded English language errors as reasons for poor academic writing. So they were conflating academic literacy with English language proficiency. And while we understood that, there's a measure of English language proficiency that's essential in order to write well academically, a large portion of their narratives was about how their grammar was poor and their spelling was poor and their concord and not being able to find the right words, etc. Lots of it was just pure English language errors that rather than anything to do with academic writing per se. And we do recognize that they are both linked, but the foregrounding of it was a little bit concerning. However, students and staff diverged on many aspects of very specific things. So there were issues that were mentioned by both groups where students thought they actually were doing pretty well. And as a whole, students, in terms of the Likert scale, students were saying we're doing pretty well, we okay, we managing. Yes, we do struggle with some things, but it's not terrible. It's we okay, we managing, we can develop an argument, we can understand text, which means that the student data and the staff data just started moving further and further away and misaligning. So we realized that there are huge gaps in student and staff views. And that was something we needed to address and to talk about. And we've done it at various meetings and spoken about it in terms of what can be done and how it can be, how we can meet in the middle. In terms of insights and lessons learned from phase 3, which was creating modules to train doctoral students, we found that many of the ideas from Teachers College, from the US, did not apply to the South African context. We had very specific requirements. Our language needs were very different. Our students' confidence levels were very different, which didn't appear to happen in the US at all. And so, for instance, while we had very set modules that had been drawn up and created, we had to adjust and create more and more and more modules as we went on. And so when we met monthly, we would respond to things that were coming up during the project. For instance, both contexts use doctoral students as their writing advisors. And in the US, when we were present, that didn't seem to be a problem for the students who did come for help. And we sat in on this dialogic model that they were proposing. With our first years, they were just terrified of the fact that they were going to be talking to doctoral students. They didn't seem particularly concerned about talking to a lecturer, but talking to a doctoral student, and it was, oh, they're going to think I'm so silly, they're going to laugh at me, they're going to judge me. And it was something we didn't anticipate. But we had to address it very specifically with the students, with the first-year students, that these are people who were first-year students, that they want to help, they want to make you better. And we almost had to do it where the writing mentors had to tell them, you know, I had the same issues as you when I was in first year. In fact, I have the same issues now. And that made them a lot more comfortable. And by the end, we were getting students saying, oh, you know, that the doctoral students were becoming their role models and they wanted to be like them, which was something that we didn't see in the US at all. So we had to ensure that our modules were very context specific. But we also had to, you know, look at academic literacy in terms of designing our modules to focus on different approaches to academic literacy. So, you know, the doctoral students had to learn how to know what sort of approach to use. So, you know, were they using an autonomous approach, where they, you know, which is, you know, quite an overt, discrete, language-based, almost formulaic way of teaching something? Or what about, you know, did they need to use a genre approach where they focus on the disciplinary needs, the disciplinary jargon, the, you know, so making the approach very discipline specific. And then, of course, an ideological approach, you know, which being contextually aware. What is this question asking? What is the requirement of the reading? You know, how do they socially construct their practices? How do they enable their own agency in their engagement with academic literacy? So we had to develop modules to address those kinds of issues, but we had to also, you know, design modules on how to comment on drafts and how to suggest strategies for revision, for the simple reason that the doctoral students went through academic literacy themselves and understood how they were taught it. And sometimes we needed to unteach. So whereas our modules had, you know, dealt with very specific things, by the end we were, you know, looking at things like even how to brainstorm a topic, how to draft an essay, how to search for literature, how to revise writing, you know, accessing, you know, resources, all sorts of things, including how to develop genre literacies, which was quite a bit of work that was required of us and of the doctoral students. You know, and we then also had to, you know, develop things on audience awareness, how to develop an argument, how to organize your essay, and all the research skills related to referencing and plagiarism and, you know, academic writing conventions generally. But we also needed to add in quite a bit on the fact that the students were English second language speakers of English, and how second language speakers of English sometimes learn English and use English. And that was something we hadn't anticipated as well. And so the doctoral students had to learn this for the first time, and they found it very useful in then understanding the students they were working with. In terms of phase 4, which was actually recruiting and training doctoral students, so we put out an advert to all doctoral students from the research office. You know, they sent us CVs, we interviewed them, and we needed to know that the kind of student we were getting would be a student who was already quite, in terms of what he or she said about academic literacy, but also was quite open to learning more and also being open to, you know, quite a supportive environment in which to work. So we purposefully chose quite a diverse group of students in terms of gender, race, age, you know, and age was important. We had, you know, a tutor, a writing advisor who was a much older person, and students seemed to love her. and wanted to come to her. And, the feedback we got from students was, that she's like talking to her mum. And, so it was, again, something we didn't quite anticipate. Of course, we had to check on students, doctoral students' availability. We worked the program over 4 days a week. We had 2 large sessions. 3 students worked in the morning, 3 worked in the afternoon, and then they swapped over for the next days, and that's how they worked for 4 days. We didn't use Friday because we were told by doctoral supervisors that we need our doctoral students to work on their theses. And so we got also the writing advisors had to come from various disciplines, because we thought we would actually link students with them. It didn't quite work out that way, but where we could, we did it. They also had to be very open to new ways of approaching things and unlearning. And so with the interview, we had to check that they would be open to that kind of thing. The training was, one large half-day workshop to start off with, which the team worked with the doctoral students. And thereafter, we met monthly, as I said. We had workshops, but we also had many role play scenarios, which we thought was ultimately very, very useful, doing the role play scenarios and, commenting on their role plays. And by the end of it, the doctoral students were themselves running workshops for their peers and for the team, for the project team. All these meetings were on Zoom. All the workshops were on Zoom. We thought that we'd have problems with it. We didn't. But looking back on it, I really think it would work a lot better in person than on Zoom, for the simple reason of networks failing and things like that. We had to ensure that our training showed students how to move away from a deficit model. That students had to recognize that the doctoral students had to recognize what the first year students came with, what the value of their diversity, the valuing their language practices. So where students would say things like, but I'm not good at English, and I'm not, we had to then affirm what they are good at. And I heard doctoral students say, but I'm sure if you say it in isiZulu, you'll be fine. And they understood, and they recognized that they didn't come with a deficit. They had problems with specific issues. So we had to, in these training sessions, help the doctoral students understand that they were helping others overcome academic and other literacy barriers. They were helping students to develop genre literacies in their disciplines. They were supporting students' individual meaning making. So they had to learn how to take them through the process. They had to show them how to gain voice. And that was a difficult one. But in feedback later on, the first few students were saying, using words like that, that so-and-so showed me how to use my voice. And, that was the feedback was quite, and I did print out some of the feedback, which I will, share with you as well. And we had to also in the training show the doctoral students how to use a dialogic peer feedback model. So make it quite individualized based on what students wanted, based on what they thought they needed, based on what they saw themselves not being able to do or not being sure of. And that the mentorship had to build on students' cultural capital. They had to build on students' self-efficacy, on students' writing skills that they already came with. But the most important thing that we stressed was the ethos in each session, an ethos of encouraging, of supporting, of being kind and compassionate, of being engaging, of being, guiding and being responsive to students' needs rather than just imposing a taught method almost. In terms of phase 5, which was the actual mentorship, so it was online rather than in person. And that immediately was a challenge for us, for the first year students. Remember, these are first year students who have just come to university and they were thrown into online teaching and learning. So they already had problems with how to use this thing called Zoom. And, they were already having problems with accessing their learning management systems. They were just making sense of things. And so, that played a part initially that was not anticipated. But, they did eventually get used to it. We also found that students sometimes booked a slot because, you had to book a slot with a mentor, and they're not turning up, or sometimes turning up, but then not speaking. And we realized it was all this issues of confidence and feeling vulnerable and, things like that. And what we had, and, this was something that we didn't even tell the doctoral students to do, but what they suddenly found themselves doing was then following up with the student, because we had, the appointments were made via their email addresses, and then following up with the students and almost easing them into this process. And again, we didn't anticipate at all how well we had chosen the doctoral students, for one, and how they then became, by the end of the project, such role models to the students in so many ways beyond the academic. Once Zoom became user-friendly, things eased off a lot more, but I still maintain that an in-person, face-to-face program would have been much better. And in fact, by the, as the pandemic ended and as we were opening up the university, because our funders did extend our program, we did have some sessions towards the end in person, and they were so much more powerful, I think, by that time, which was close to exams and close to students submitting assignments, and the engagement, I thought, was so much more powerful in person. So that is something that, I would strongly recommend if you can do. What we did was we sent monthly reminders to the first years, reminding them that, should you have a problem with your assignment, or should you have questions about it, or should you need any mentorship. And sometimes we'd actually tell them things like, are you finding it difficult understanding your question? Are you finding it difficult finding sources? We'd give them examples, but we sent a reminder to them monthly. And we did find that our numbers increased significantly just post that email. So initially what we did was we got the doctoral students to work in pairs. So 2 doctoral students worked with a student, and they loved it. The doctoral students found that very useful because they had 2 voices helping the student. But what we found from the students who were part of that process was how positively they engaged with that. They really enjoyed having 2 people there, helping them with various things and giving them ideas. Initially, I sat in on many of the Zoom sessions because I was the principal investigator. I was always copied in on every Zoom meeting. I sat in on it. Didn't say much initially unless I was asked by the doctoral student, but it helped me just to, this was, done in consultation with the doctoral students, and they, in fact, asked for this, but I also needed to see that things were going well and that the ethos was being followed, and that the first year students were also quite comfortable in the process. Because I was there, and I was there, quite a few of the initial meetings, I sat in on every doctoral students meetings just to see that everyone was comfortable. I was being then emailed by the first years, also with questions and comments, which was fine. The plan was that the advisor would meet with the student individually, but sometimes they did come in pairs, and sometimes they even came in groups. So there'll be a few students on Zoom and a pair of students who came on Zoom. And we didn't stop that at all. I think in some instances they felt comfortable, and in some instances it was just the same topic, so they wanted to talk about it. Later sessions in the program, we found large groups turning up. The word was spreading that this was working, that it was, that they got a lot of help. And so we would get large groups. By the time we were in person, up to 10, 11, 12 people were turning up, sitting with a mentor who was helping them talk through various things. We also found that some students requested a specific mentor for subsequent sessions. So they would ask for X. We also found that students from other years, from the second years, third years, fourth years, and the honors students were then writing to the administrator or writing to me saying, can't we get involved? Can't we, request a mentorship session? And because the doctoral students were not contracted to do that, we didn't let them do it, but I met with them. I then, had exactly the same kind of session with them, but not the doctoral students. So, so that the recognition was that the support was needed beyond first year. So it's not just a first year problem. It's, obviously a much wider thing. And at TC Columbia, they actually open it to their master's students as well. For every mentorship session, the mentors filled in an evaluation form. It was a very simple form which we constructed collaboratively, but it was just very useful for the project team, for the staff on the team, but it was also useful for the mentors to reflect. It then also shaped our next monthly meeting, because I would look at what would be coming through as common kind of things to to then build on in subsequent sessions. And so that was, and we worked till the end of last year when the project ended. And so where to from here? So we asked the writing advisors to provide feedback on the program. So these were doctoral students, and the overwhelming thing was how this program improved their own writing of their theses, right? So they were saying, so while they were doing the mentorship, they were writing and, researching and writing up. So they definitely found, they said they didn't know some things, and some things they learned, and some things that just improved their writing. But many of them had been in other projects, and what they said they really appreciated with this project was the culture of care, the culture of compassion, of patience. They use words like this was a project of service and collegiality, and it built great confidence in them as well. We saw the growth in the mentors, and we've become quite close to them now. Some of them, of course, having graduated already from us. We also asked the students to provide feedback, and so we had quite a large cohort of first years who came for many sessions, not just one, they came for subsequent sessions. And we asked them for feedback as well. And many of them pointed to specific academic literacy issues that they learned, how to read a question, how to understand instruction words, as basic things like planning and organizing an essay or formulating an argument. All those things they picked on. They even spoke about plagiarism and referencing, because that was a huge thing, because that's plagiarism and referencing is not something that's done in school. In fact, it's quite often encouraged. And so, all those kinds of things they spoke about, use of tone, paragraphing, topic sentences, all of that. But they also spoke about, again, the ethos of the sessions. So I made a note of some of the things they said. So, it's something like X did the session very slowly and made me try examples. X was very good even when I made mistakes. I saw how badly I was writing, but now I have my, in inverted commas, helper. X was so patient with me. X told me that X also had the same problems in first year. That gave me hope. And I was writing so badly, even though I did well in school. So they recognized the academic literacy issues, but also we were glad that the ethos was being recognized as well. We didn't get any negative responses from the students. Well, not from the advisors, but not from the students. So if they did have any, we didn't know about it. And so the way forward for us, on a short-term basis, we are doing collaborative publications. That's the research team and the doctoral advisors. So it's quite a big team, and we work on different papers. One has already been submitted, which is a lovely, take forward for them, because this, they had such ownership of this project, the project team and the doctoral advisors. In terms of a long-term goal, UKZN is looking to set up a specific academic literacy center in the School of Education. We have one in the College of Humanities, but the School of Education is a standalone campus. We need an academic literacy center. And we also need to benefit students from beyond first year, obviously. But there's a lot of interest from other universities in KZN, beyond UKZN. So we have aspirational relationships with University of Zululand and Durban University of Technology. And so the big thing, of course, is funding. We've got the infrastructure now set up. We've got the place. It's just funding to pay the writing advisors is what it is, and then we can move forward. My dean, Prof. Msibi, is very keen on taking this forward. The college leadership is very keen on taking this forward. So I am currently on sabbatical, so I know I haven't been pushing it, but we are definitely going to be making this our priority going forward. What we found in TC, besides they had a center, they had the doctoral advisors, they had an administrator, but they also had a director of the center. And we realized the huge role she played in making the center work. And so I would advise, if anyone's setting up an academic literacy center, that a director is appointed, because it just gets the wheels moving so much easier. And I think that's my end. That's where I'm stopping. So I'm going to say thank you here. Thank you, Marissa. I'm handing back to you. Or am I?
Thank you very much. I'm afraid I'm going to have to leave now.
That's fine.
But I'm going to hand over to Janine. Thank you so much. It was really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Indeed. Thank you, Marissa. Take care. So I know that is from this to the burial. That is really sad. Thank you so much, Professor Pillay, for really a very good presentation. And I'm sure our colleagues, Professor Pinet, I see is having already their hand up, is from the Unit of Academic Literacy, is going to resonate with a lot of what you said. Without wasting too much time, I see our time is going, so I'm going to give him the floor to start with observation or question. Prof. Angu, the mic is yours.
Thank you, colleague, and thank you, Prof. Pillay. I hope you guys can hear me.
Yes.
Indeed. Your presentation is very liberating in so many ways, especially for someone like me teaching academic literacy and also heading the Unit for Academic Literacy. I think for me, the highlight of your presentation is the perception that disciplinary experts have about what academic literacy should be, which in a way tends to shift our attention from the very important things that we're supposed to be doing. And I've been having this conversation with colleagues that the message out there should be that academic literacy is not English, and people should understand that. So hearing that from you is quite liberating, and I seem to think that we are on the right track. And also, I think this is a challenge that not for me, not only one entity of the university can take on its own. And this is something that, again, we've been talking about, that if you keep pushing your students to us and saying to us that no, they cannot read, they cannot write, we don't have the capacity to address that. First of all, that's not what we're supposed to be focusing in. And secondly, we need your support to be able to do this. So you've given me a lot of things to think about. And the one question that I have for you is, remember you started with a need analysis, right? At the beginning, of course, get a sense of what's happening on the ground. And how involved were discipline lecturers in this particular project? That's the question that I have for you.
Okay, yes. So in terms of the needs analysis, and thank you for your, I also get very pleased when I hear other colleagues, echo what we're trying to do and our concerns. In terms of our needs analysis, so we sent it to the students, that's a different issue. But in terms of the staff, we canvassed staff who taught first-year students across all disciplines. So their views were canvassed. So we had absolutely a diverse group of staff who taught first-year students. But in terms of running the project, it was language people only.
Okay. All right. And I'm sure, obviously, the way forward is now to go back to them and say, look at the results. These are the results that we got from this project. And yeah, thank you for that. And look, mine is just, this is incredible. And I think it also echoes one very important thing, is that we need the resources to be able to make this work. Without resources in terms of staff capacity, in terms of writing advices, I mean, it cannot work in my view. And it's a lifelong learning process. That's what I keep saying to colleagues, that this is not something that I can do in one semester, which is the dilemma that we find ourselves in, dealing with students at one semester, but expecting miracles. They're expecting miracles to happen. So thank you for that. And unfortunately, I have to leave because I have a meeting at 1 o'clock. Thanks for that. Perhaps I'll have to contact you privately so that we can carry on this conversation and perhaps think about ways in which the two, because we have a very established unit for academic literacy, providing courses for almost the entire university. So I might want to contact you at some stage, and then we can talk about possible collaborations.
Absolutely. I'd really, really like that. Please feel most welcome to contact me, and we can take it forward.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much, colleagues. I like the fact that you talk about the different discipline and the academic literacy, the involvement of different discipline, as well as on the staff narrative and the student narrative. Then you could see what are the side of the students, what they're saying, what are they struggling with, and you incorporated it in your research and distributed this. This is really wonderful. And I see Dr. Duval is one of our colleagues at Mamelodi. Maybe you want to speak, or because you're going to class now, what are you saying? You can speak quickly there before you leave. Marguerite?
Sorry, yeah, I'm on my way to teach a class at 1 o'clock, but I just wanted to say thank you so much, Prof. Pillay. It was really an informative talk, and I experienced it as bracing and affirming for others like myself who are involved in academic literacy. And it's good to know that we have such good people and dedicated scholars, doing the work all across the country. So thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Any other comments from colleagues? If we have to add one or two things or share or discuss, or one part you'd like to discuss further? Prof. Vanessa, I saw you were there. Are you from the medical campus? Do you want to add something on this? Prof. Tien, come. Is she gone already? She was in the house. Any other person? Okay, I see Alan. Yes, you can go ahead. This is one of my colleagues.
Prof. Pillay, thank you for your insightful talk. I'm really relieved to hear that there is this kind of work ongoing at UKZN. And I'm from UKZN. I finished my undergraduate and postgraduate there. And I know that there was a writing center within the main library at sorry, not Hatfield campus, Howard College campus.
Yes.
In setting up your writing center, did you have any communication with them, or did you exchange notes? Is that still going?
Yes, yes, that is a very well established writing center at Howard College. Our students can't go there, right? It means taking a bus or taking a couple of buses to go there. So just students don't have that access to just walk into it. They run it in quite a different way. So they are very interested in what we are doing as well. They like the stance that's being taken. I should imagine, and they do know completely. They know what we've done, and we know what they do at Howard College, and there are other writing centers, by the way. But we realize that students don't go to the writing center too often. Or if they go in, they go there to ask the person to correct their work. And we wanted it to be a much more dialogic kind of, peer mentorship kind of ethos. We wanted to move the shift there, which I think we've managed to do with this project. And so the Academic Literacy Center that we set up, we hope to recreate that, with all the tweaks and with all the things that we need to do differently and do better. But so to answer your question, yes, we are aware of each other's projects, but I think the focus is just a slightly different with this one.
Great, thank you.
And Doctor, if people want to contact me individually,
Yes.
email me. I know you have my email address.
We do.
We very keen on getting this moving and spreading it. And so if anyone has any questions or clarity, or as Marissa said at the beginning, I had a slide presentation to share, which I can share with anyone if they need it. But I just thought, because it was insights and learning, things that we learned or lessons learned, I needed to chat about it a lot more than do a presentation. So if anyone actually wants that presentation, I can send it to them as well.
Yes, no, definitely. I'm sure you open also a way for collaboration between our two universities, and seeing Professor Angu, because they had the unit or the center already, they're developing that, so for sure. And colleagues like Alan will intervene, and Margaret, so I'm sure they will, and other colleagues in their own division, I'm sure they will share your particulars, emails, and etc. They will contact you definitely. And this is what we do. We need to collaborate between the universities and share experiences. We cannot reinvent the wheel. The problems, if already you did the collaboration of American universities, and the findings are similar, and the students are the same everywhere we go. When the English is not your first language, we face the same problem. And
Absolutely.
also, I like the fact that you clearly say that it's not about the English language, it's about academic literacy. So we from the outside confuse the two words, say, oh, it's English class, but it's not an English lesson, it's about the academic literacy, which really we all need to know about it and understand the work that our colleagues in the unit of academic literacy are achieving with our students as a whole, and to know the place, the important place they play in the society, in the university. And that for me is quite an added insightful when we sit in the meeting and reflect about it in different way. So, and also the support from and that the other student, the colleagues, the discipline can bring, that brings also cross collaboration with the discipline about the specific language and vocabulary that is needed in certain specific, as in the, I can speak for extended program, we do have 4 streams, the commerce, we have the physical science, the mathematical and biological science, and those different streams have specific needs, different needs, beside the general curriculum that can be created. But if we can start engaging the diversity of the discipline requirement, that will add advantage and prepare better our students in their career, in their teaching and learning career. Thank you so much. I see the time, we're 1 minute past 1. And I think if there are no questions, if you have the last word, I see many thanks in the chat. Janita, you are saying that engagement between doctorate students, yes, that was something. I said that's scared of doctorate, but they help with the lecturers who are, some of them, they have the doctorate, but it's maybe, I think, is the way they see the degree is so far-fetched. And the lecturers is there, is with me. Maybe that's also something we need to investigate, how the student view the lecturers and the student from the other end of the ladder when their career as a student. Yes. No, thank you so much. What I have left is to thank you, unless you have the concluding words. So if you have some closing remarks.
No, thank you so much for the kind invitation. We've shared this the findings from this project with others, and we just want to, because I know it will lead to collaboration with you, and we absolutely open to those things. Thank you for the very kind words from people on the chat. I'm glad that it's resonating with what people are saying, because you obviously have exactly the same issues that we have, and we've got to approach it. We just felt we needed to approach it slightly differently to make it work. So thank you again for this kind invitation, and to everyone involved. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank
and
you.
Goodbye, colleagues.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.